friend Lamar, and I'm told I don't need to read a bio, so I'll let him tell you what you're going to talk about.
Good afternoon. Yep, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to come here today and talk to you a little bit about the patenting process, specifically around patenting your pets, your privacy enhancing technologies. So, all right, quick story. Before I got into technology, I was a police officer. I worked in Metro Atlanta, and I enjoyed policing, but the pay in policing wasn't all that great. So a lot of officers would do other things like part-time jobs in order to earn extra income. So I did things like work security or protection details. For what I quickly found out is one of the most lucrative opportunities for part-time jobs is working for law firms as an investigator. So law firms would be hired to take care of or conduct certain types of investigations. And they would want someone with investigatory experience as well as someone who's certified and could go in and help with these investigations. What I noticed during this investigation process is that the legal community is definitely very slow to change. And so if you're looking for an area to explore and market that's poised for innovation, definitely think about legal tech. When we would do these investigations, the case files and the amount of things that we would have to collect would grow exponentially depending on the number of people involved in the investigation, because there's a need to sometimes compartmentalize information, keep things separate. And I just noticed this was a problem, and there was no clear solution for it. All right, so my name is Frank Lamar. I'm a privacy engineering manager. I work at Google, been at Google for 4.5, going on 5 years now. I lead the cloud privacy operations and engineering tooling team. Before Google, I worked at Delta Airlines as the software engineering manager, and I worked at the Home Depot, also the software engineering manager. Outside, so say it's good to give like a fun fact about yourself. So outside of the technology world, I enjoy reading horror. I enjoy running. My next race coming up is the Paris 25 Marathon, and I like fighting. It's a great stress reliever. Today I'm going to talk to you about the patent process that I've used with my teams, and I'm going to explore, kind of walk you through that process in one patent in particular. My team is involved with 5 patents, 1 defensible publication, and we have kind of 3 patents in flight right now, so we've kind of done this a couple times. So I want to start out with the ideation, where the ideas come from. Ideas can come from anything. They can be from the work that you are doing. They can be from talking from friends about the different problems. They can be like the things I observed when I was working for the law firms, that they were just kind of poised for innovation. When I first started at Google, I worked with another more seasoned privacy veteran. His name was Stefan. Stefan was battle hardened. He had seen and done it all, and I was just a Padawan eager to learn from him. After working with Stefan for a couple of months, he left the team and rolled over to a new organization that was being founded called Privacy Investigations. The Privacy Investigation team was essentially like a forensics for privacy. So they pretty much had 2 missions. One, they kind of borrowed from security, like familiar with security red teaming. Well, this was privacy red teaming. So they would do things along that line to check for compliance, to check our privacy controls, ask for access to databases they shouldn't have access to, things like that. See if they could break pseudonymization, these kinds of things. So Stefan left and went to that team, and my team got a new manager in. This new manager was very big on the design thinking process and was really heavily focused in design. We studied books about design. Particularly, we studied some of the origins of design. This was one of the earlier works that we read by Peter Rowe. He talked about really design as solutioning and design as innovation. We started to explore the interconnectedness between design. We took the design piece a step further and went beyond just design thinking into abstract design thinking. Abstract design thinking, and both of these books or papers are still available if you want to read them. This particular work talked about the really wicked problems. These are ill-defined, ambiguous problems where there's no clear solution. One of the key things that we pulled from this particular work was the consideration of diverse perspectives. Our team started to implement these things that we call abstract design workshops. In our abstract design workshops, we would invite people from different industries to come and talk to us and just share whatever it is that they were working on, their challenges, things that they face. We talked to arborists, we talked to beekeepers, we talked to TSA agents, FBI agents, Green Berets, everything. We just were curious about their world, about their problems, and if there were some type of implications that would come back to us and we would be able to apply later. So for the patent I'm going to tell you about, there was a particular convergence of circumstances. So I told you about Stefan, who's the privacy engineer that kind of trained me and helped me when I was growing up. He left and went to this privacy investigation team. He and I would talk pretty regularly, and I found out that he was running into the same problem that I ran into in the law offices. They had this need to compartmentalize information when they were investigating privacy leaks and documentation. There were multiple email threads, multiple documents, multiple versions, and it was kind of getting out of control. So I kind of heard that was what Stefan was facing. Around the same time, I'm an OG Potterhead. Any other Potterheads in here? Any Gryffindors? Got a Gryffindor over here. Hufflepuff, Slytherin, what? Hufflepuff. All right, cool. So you all know what this is, right? That is not Severus Snape. It's a boggart. Somebody said it. It's a boggart. All right. So what a boggart is a entity that when it comes in front of you, it takes the form of your biggest fear. So in this particular case, Neville was looking at the boggart, and it came out looking like Snape, and then he kind of transformed it into his grandmother. So like I said, I'm an old school Potterhead. I came like when the books were dropping at midnight, in line, in Borders, going to see the movies in costume. But I have a son, and at the time, he was just discovering the Harry Potter series. So I got to re-experience it with him. Another thing that came out, this is all within like a 2-week span. I saw this article about Delta releasing their parallel reality series. Now, I had been an engineering manager at Delta before leaving to come to Google, and I remember seeing a demo of this parallel reality technology, and so we decided to dive in a little bit deeper into how the parallel technology works. So, the parallel technology, essentially you can have multiple people looking at the same display but see content that is personalized to them. So Delta partnered with an organization, with a company called Misaligned Sciences. And Misaligned Sciences essentially created a new type of pixel. The original pixel that we know, and today, like we're looking at a screen, it's green or blue, wherever you're looking at it from, all from the same direction. With the multi-view pixel that was developed at Misaligned Sciences, what they essentially figured out is they use basically a projector as a pixel. And with the projector, they were able to programmatically control which direction certain pixels went to. So if you layer all of these on top of them, so if you imagine in a screen, instead of every pixel being an individual dot, every pixel is a projection, and you're controlling the angle in which those lines go, you can present a different image to a different person depending on their angle of view and the way that they're seeing it. But all these things were kind of rattling around in my head, and having a conversation with Stefan, reading about the boggart, and reading the article about the rollout of this technology that I had seen a couple of years ago, I said, I think we could do this. What if we could do this for a document, but it not be on a screen, it not be glasses? What if we could find a way to create apples that basically apply down to the byte level for an individual based on their predetermined roles? And so our team got together and we started working through kind of a couple of, we stopped kind of doing the abstract design sessions where we were talking to individuals, and we started to all kind of circle around this problem. And this is what we landed with. This is a method for secure, compartmentalized, anonymous document process. Essentially, if you notice, our diagram looks a little bit like the multi-pixel diagram. So today when you have a document, you have a Word doc, Google doc, whatever. When you share that document, you share the whole thing to everyone at every time. You can set certain levels of permissions, like you can give someone just read access, read write access, read write edit access, but it's all at the object level. So we created a thing called a scrape expression. The scrape expression, you can think of it as being like based on regex but on steroids and all the way down at the byte level. So when you have these scrape expressions, you can essentially bundle a type of scrape expression into a privilege, and we call that a content-based privilege. So that bit could be depending on where it is in the stack. It could be depending on if it's one level above and you want to set it on particular characters or have breakpoints in a document. And you could bundle these scrape permissions into a scrape role. And what scrape role now allows you to do is create a different view of the document for every person depending on what roles you've set for them. So essentially, as the admin, you create it and you have a overview of the entire system and what it looks like. So you have system level access. You still have your object level access, which is the apples like we know today. And then now, using our scrape expressions, we can develop content level objects. So essentially for the roles, so these roles here are X, Y, and Z that the admin has set up. Let's say the document, for one particular use case, let's say in the context of academia, a professor who is the admin could create a document that covers their entire course. So it can have all the lectures, all the problem sets, the tests, quizzes, all these things all in one place. And the professor can see the entire document. They can then create a scrape permission for the TAs. And so the TAs get a portion of the document that they can see. They're going to need to follow their responsibilities, and then they can set another permission on that document for the students. As at the student level, this is what they can see. So at all those levels in the stack, now the professor can maintain all of those in one particular place. Another way that we've been exploring applying this technology is when it comes to trigger warnings. Like I said, I'm a avid horror fan. I like all things horror. And in the horror community, there has been adoptions of trigger warnings lately. So even though I like horror, there's certain things I just can't handle or can't tolerate. Anything involving kids, that's just not me. So normally at the front of horror content, they will give you trigger warnings to kind of give you a preview of what's going to happen. So imagine if you could say have trigger warnings as tags associated to your YouTube account. And then when a content creator uploads a video or they upload a podcast, they can tag not only that this is a trigger warning, but they can also tag the portions of the video that associate to the trigger warning, and those portions disappear for the user that's dealing with that trigger warning. And so this is what we align to. Sorry. We have our idea, we have our prototype. Now it's time to start the patent filing process. So with patents, there are a couple of different types, like 7 or 8 different types of patents in total, but I'm scoping this down to some of the most common ones. The utility patent. Utility patent, from my experience, a majority of the software patents that I've come across have been utility patents. These are around new and novel ways to use existing technology or new technologies. The plant patent is around plants, living organisms. You cannot patent a naturally occurring biological organism, but if you say breed a particular strand of corn that is resistant to a certain infection or can thrive in an unusual environment, you can get patents on those. The design patent, you a lot of times find these when it comes to physical objects, things that hardware solutions as opposed to software solutions. And the last piece is the defensible publication. The defensible publication essentially is when you have created an idea or you have something new and you don't necessarily want to patent it and prevent other people from using it, but you want to prevent someone else from creating a patent on that invention or that technology. So this is more like an offensive thing. So I am producing the defensible patent. It is going to exist as prior art, and if someone else tries to patent that thing after me, then they can't, because patents is kind of like a race to who can get it done first. So these are the 4 types of patents. We kind of talked about it. We aligned that utility seemed to be the best fit for us. We weren't necessarily inventing anything new per se, but ACLs, we're applying them in a new way. All right, so let's kind of got into this, the things you can't patent. You can't patent mathematical formulas. This includes algorithms, but you can do systems of how to apply those algorithms, economic principles, mental processes, scientific principles, anything that's kind of naturally occurring, you can't put a patent on these things. Now, when we got our information together and we engaged with the patent group, we were, we had a working prototype, we had all of our documentation, all of our meeting notes, our diagrams, our workflows. The next thing that the patent group introduced us to was the Alice test. So what the Alice test is a way to test for what's the word? I think it's non-ambiguousness. When it comes to, or pardon me, not non-abstraction. When it comes to software, you must ensure that what you're trying to do is non-ambiguous as well as non-obvious. So this, case was with a company called Alice Corporation versus it was some bank. This case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and in that determination, the Alice Corporation was attempting to patent the escrow process. So they had basically taken what already existed as escrow and just ported it to a digital format, and they were trying to create a patent on that. The Alice Corporation lost that lawsuit to the bank. It said you cannot, escrow is essentially an economic principle. You cannot put a patent on that. But what arose out of the Alice case was the Alice test. And the Alice test is now applied to software patents to ensure that what you're doing actually kind of meets the criteria for patents. So after we have all of our documentation together, we start our patent application, we decide on a utility. Now we start to go through the Alice test. And the Alice test is basically, it's 2 steps. You go through step 1, and you basically need to demonstrate each of these fields in step 1. Now, if you pass the Alice test over here in step 1, and this is kind of true of your invention, that's it, you're done. You can move on to the next step. However, if you don't pass step 1, then you go into step 2. In step 2, you see, is this an improvement in this way? Is it not an instruction? Is it actually something that has a tangible benefit and improvement to a tool or a computer, and not just the obvious function of that tool in itself? Like things like instructions. So if I wrote a document or instructions on how to train an LLM on all of the privacy violations worldwide, the instructions for that are non-patentable. It's a non-material claim. But if I was to produce a new type of LLM that processes in a different way, specifically tailored to privacy, I may have a chance there. All right, so we get our application together, we have all of our stuff, we have the abstract of our invention, we detail the particular problems that we solve, which is being able to set permissions down to the byte level for processing of documentation. We have our clear and concise, unambiguous claims of this is what it does, this is how it works. Now, we did not do this part, the next bullet. This is called you have to do a thing called a prior art search. In a prior art search, you look for technologies that your work is built upon or is related to, and you must explain how yours is materially different from those things. So we didn't do our own prior art search. The patent team that was working with us actually did the prior art search. They found a couple of things, and then we just responsible for the part on detailing on how what we had created differed from what was done in those artifacts that were returned. You get your detailed description, how to make use of the invention, and how to make use of the invention is the best known way to create what you're doing at that time. You essentially, continue to work and develop, and so there may be new methods or faster methods, but you want to document the best practice at the time of your application filing. You do an oath of declaration. Everyone has to sign, saying that everything I put in this patent application is true, and all those things, and you have to pay your filing fees. The filing fees can range. They kind of have a sliding scale depending on the size of your organization, complexity of the patent. In most cases, you can expect to spend somewhere between $15,000, I would say $13,000 to $20,000 end to end for your patent. Now, you can do a patent filing on your own. The USPTO has all the applications, all the documents and instructions that you need on their website. However, I don't suggest going it alone your first time. There's a lot of complexity there. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know and stuff that you don't know that you don't know. And if you choose to pay money for the patent filing process or to get someone to help you, that person should be a patent attorney. There are plenty of organizations or people claiming to help you file the patents that are not actual attorneys. So if you're going to spend cash to do it, make sure you are actually working with an attorney, an actual professional. So after you file your application, it goes off to USPTO, and then you wait, you spend time. For us, it took about, I want to say 14 months from the time that we filed the application until we came back with our first response, or first action from USPTO. And then another 5 months from that before our patent was fully issued and granted to us. This window can vary. According to USPTO, on average, the time for first action, as of right now, averages for about 14 months, and full end-to-end completion of the patent can be 2 to 3 years. Another reason that this is important is that your patent protection lasts for 20 years. That 20 years start from the date of filing, not from the date of issue. So if they take a 3-year time frame, there's some complexity. You have to do some going back and forth between USPTO. Those things count against the time that your patent is available. Now, in certain circumstances, depending on how much time, you can ask for that time to be added back to you, but that's a whole separate other application. And so we get our patent back and we're done, right? No, we're not done. Once you're done with the patent, again, it's granted for 20 years, there is a maintenance schedule. There's a maintenance schedule that you must keep in order to maintain your patent. So there is ongoing fees that you have to pay to maintain, and it's at a specific interval. And if you miss those fees, then your patent is, I forgot the technical term for it, but basically it's like fair game. Anyone else can use it. So it's 3.5 years, 7.5 years, and 11.5 years. You have these maintenance fees. And this is why it's good if you do have an attorney that can keep up with these things for you along the way. All right, so that kind of just brings me to the end. I've talked about the patent process, the ideation, how we use design thinking, abstract design thinking, and found problems in the wild. I talked about the patent that the circumstances that created the patent that we came up with. I talked about the actual process for filing, what you have to do, how long you have to wait, all those things, and kind of brought that to a head. So I'll open it up for questions. If y'all have anything, I'm an open book. As long as I can talk about it, I will talk about it, whether it's Google, software engineering, privacy, whatever.
I'm curious how you personally square being a privacy engineer and working at Google. I'm just if I can be totally honest, I don't how do you square that in your brain as I think a lot of us see it as like a pretty massive, aggressive corporation as far as privacy is concerned. How do you square that in your brain? How do you make that leap? This is the thing this is where I should be.
Yeah.
This is what I believe in.
Yeah. I have had to face this question a couple of times in my life. I faced this question, being black and being in the military. I faced this question being black and being in law enforcement. And I faced this question, like you just asked it to me, being a privacy engineer and working at Google. I like to take the stance of I can't make change from the outside. And if I'm a part of this organization, if I am developing a level of expertise, if I'm putting in leadership positions, and I'm doing what I know is right, that's the only way I'm going to make change. If I'm arguing or advocating outside of the organization, unless I'm an entity, unless I have a way to get these companies' attention, I can't really do anything from the outside. So I see myself as an agent of change from within. There's a great movie about this that kind of inspired me called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. So that's kind of how I look at and square it in myself, is I want to be able to be in the position that I can be the decision maker and the change maker.
Fair enough.
Yeah, great question. I saw a hand over here.
I guess my question was just logistics stuff of do you end up getting the patent received or approved, and then what's the process after that when you use that design? And if you've ever had other people use similar designs and challenge your patent or how that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I heard when you get your patent, what's next?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is something that I wish someone had told me in the beginning, because I did not know this. When we filed our patent, we are listed as the inventors on the patent. However, Google actually owns the patent. They pay us a bounty, you kind of get some money for that, but essentially the patent belongs to Google. So some of the other patent work that we've done outside of Google, where we actually own the patent ourselves. So any licensing, any usage of that patent, any challenges to those patents that we did on behalf of Google, that becomes Google's responsibility. And they have an entire patent team and an army of lawyers who kind of chase and do these things. If you're on your own, it's kind of up to you, but there's more responsibility, but there's more upside, because if you create something and then you license it to a Google, what you can make from those types of licensing agreements is much more than what they'll pay you for doing those kind of things internally. There's a whole branch of court that's specifically around patents. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess my second question is, have you ever had your other third parties challenge your patent or use your money?
I have not experienced that yet. Yep.
So is Google actually using your technology?
This technology is in its experimental stages. We are using it somewhat within the privacy investigations team. They are our alpha testers. And we are also exploring, like I said, exploring with YouTube this idea behind smart tags and being able to tag content. And we were working with the Google podcast team too before they got disbanded to apply these smart trigger warnings.
So a lot of part of the Alice test, a lot of AI and machine learning algorithms which also come under some of the PETS technology like privacy preserving machine learning, federated learning, etc. come under the banner of they collect data, analyze data, and report results, because that's what AI will do in general. So do you think because they won't fall under step 1 of non-abstraction, how is there a way to even patent those things?
I am not a lawyer. I'm not a legal expert by any stretch of the imagination. My understanding for the Alice test, that what you're talking about falls under step 2. If it is the collection, aggregation, and display of data, it's not going to pass the Alice test, and so that won't be patentable.
The idea of shipping off a document that contains sensitive information in it, but masking some of it, are you actually, would this data get out the door? In the example that you used, where this professor has a full master document, are they still sending out a full document that is only partially visible, or are you literally cutting out chunks and sending that over the wire?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the person, go back up. And there's more to this, but I just didn't get clearance to show all of the workflow, but this is the stuff I did get clearance to show. Once I have created the scrape expressions of things that I want to block out, let's say I'm going to put a scrape, I'm going to have, say, test, quiz, and syllabus. And I'm going to put a scrape expression on each one of those. Once I have put the scrape expression in play and combine those into a role, the part of the role that I send out and is visible to that person over the wire is just that part. So from their perspective, that's the entire document. So you can, another way to think of it is like with Git, right? So let's say I create the main branch, and the main branch has everything on it. And then when I create a branch for you based on this permissions, I'm going to cherry pick which parts of the branch go into yours. So from your perspective, that's the entire repo. But I'm always pulling back to main so I can see everything else, and people who have the correct permissions can see those other parts.
It would always inherently require like a client-server aspect to it. Okay, got it. Cool. Thank you.
I was curious, you said that Google owns this patent, but you own some of your other patents. Is that because you developed them not on work time, or does Google have a provision for you to own patents even if you develop them at work?
We develop these outside of work time, not using Google technologies and not using Google equipment. So when you are in your patent team, it is important that that is like a bubble in a protected space. So if you're asking questions, if you are telling people about your patent before your filing date, they could potentially challenge inventorship. So you kind of keep those things together. So this same group of people was like, hey, this is kind of cool, but we want to own our own thing. So we organized and kind of did that offline.
Yeah, and I think that's something for students. If you're interested in this sort of thing and you go work for a company, you need to find out what their rules are about intellectual property and make sure that you're following them if you want to own your own patents.
I was working in Bank of America for 2 years, and there was a org-wide drive for filing patents by the CTO. And the main problem which we faced was whenever we come up with a solution or a fix for a business problem, the push was for patents. So we didn't know like how to search for patents, whether there's actually a filed patent for that or not. Even for this technology, even though you mentioned the Alice test, but the Alice test and reading through existing patents, because the patent which you propose to the lawyer is just a PPT like this. You explain them the technology, but what gets filed is something that's completely, it has a lot of legal jargon. So how did you actually go through patents and find out, okay, has somebody actually claimed this thing? Or is it even worth spending some time ideating this or coming up with a fix like this?
Yes. I think I heard a couple questions in there. How do we go about navigating all of the legal jargon? How does the prior art search play into it, and is it worth it at the end of the day? Those are 3 questions I think.
Yep. Like, especially with the prior art search, like, as far as I know, in orgs, you get to the lawyer when there's an internal team which kind of approves it and say, okay, this idea has some potential for a patent. How do you even get to that places? Because we bounce around a lot of ideas and we kind of didn't figure out, because the patents were mostly in the legalese, to be termed.
My suggestion, what has worked well for our organization, is to not worry about the legal piece. It's to worry about the invention. It's to worry about the problem that you're trying to solve, and building a system, method, or solution for that thing. And once you are satisfied that you have kind of solved the problem and you have your patent, whether it's just you're at the prototype level or if you're still at the architecture trying to figure out how it works, and you begin your application, then it's time to do the prior art. Because if you are looking at prior art during the invention process, it is possible, it's hard to distinguish whether you came up with this idea on your own or if you were inspired by this. So you should focus on your solution first and get your solution done. Then your attorney, if you do, well, we called it I think they called it prosecution. And so in our prosecution phase is where we basically had to go and defend our patent and poke holes in it. So I talked about, being a cop and having a part-time job working for a law firm. Well, law firms also will hire subject matter experts to serve as their prosecution committee, and it's their job to try and poke holes in your thing. So we poke holes into your idea. So we went through our prosecution. We had a call with several experienced patent attorneys, as well as some high-level engineers, people who were experienced, and it was their job to kind of ask those hard questions and to poke holes, and that actually influenced our filing docs and what we ended up submitting. I want to say by the time we finished everything and we thought we were ready, our application was about 27 pages in length, and by the time it actually got to USPTO, it was about 130 pages. So they added those things. And then even when they added the legal jargon, it was still our responsibility to sign off on it before we signed that oath of declaration. And your patent attorney works for you. So things that you don't understand, they can help you translate that from what they've written from legalese into the stuff that you can understand on the business or the engineering side. Did I answer all your questions?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you doing the law computer technology class here?
It is on my grad plan. I'm not taking that this semester.
They have a class on patents, so I wanted to ask you what you thought of that if somebody's not doing it. Next time.
I have not. Yeah, next time. Any other questions?
Did you see this? You said you were at Delta when they were creating the parallel reality tech, and I'm sure a lot of it's under NDA. Did you see this getting rolled out and deployed kind of thing? Like this test run, was this just a test run or is this in use?
This is in use. So they have it at the Detroit airport now. So you go through Detroit airport, you sign and scan your boarding pass. You drop your bag, you sign your boarding pass, and then they have basically. So I missed a. Let me go back. All right, so I missed a piece. This is a very simple way that this explains, but I missed one piece. Attached to the parallel reality displays in some form or fashion, there is a camera. So when you go through and you sign your boarding pass, it is going to, the camera looking at that particular area is going to register you, and they're going to object track you through the terminal. And so they built these custom GPUs, these custom machines that can track you, all throughout the terminal, and then the signs and things that you see are going to have content that is just personalized to you, and they can handle up to 100 people in parallel. So 100 people looking at the same billboard are going to see their individual gate information in their individual language, as well as signage pointing them how to get to those things.
Horrifying. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, before this, I worked on, the last thing I started at Delta before I left in 2020 was the biometric boarding pass, and that has a whole range of things in itself. Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask one. You started this talk talking a little bit about sort of different organizations sort of needing to access similar things, but being silent from each other. But at least the way I understood your description, it wasn't necessarily that one person had the master document and everybody else could access pieces of it. So I guess I'm curious whether you see this as great, we've solved the silo problem, now we can, have lots of different organizations, only having pieces of it, or if you think there's something else that, sort of also needs to be a piece of it.
So this solution does have that one person, that the person who creates the scrape expression has full visibility. Another thing notice with Google Docs or Word, if you have multiple people logged into a document, you can all see each other in the document. You can see each other in the history. Where we are with that currently is we're at the pseudonymization level. So we can mask your username and mask the things that you are doing. So unless someone has the same role as you, they can't see who you are, they just see a pseudonym. But the admin has the option to see everything. So we're kind of at the pseudonymous layer. We haven't quite figured out the anonymization piece yet.
Any other questions? Okay, let's thank Frank again.